Good morning, and thank you for being with us here today. I am the Executive Director of the Raíces Collaborative Project. We are a small grassroots organization based out of Southeast Houston, one of the most heavily industry burdened regions in the nation, home to nearly half of all petrochemical production in the U.S. and much of the expansion that is currently concerning many of our communities. We aim to amplify voices, foster informed civic participation, and drive impactful projects that shape a more resilient future where communities can thrive. The Raíces Collab manages the Texas Carbon Capture and Storage Community Advocacy Coalition, which brings me to why we're here today. We're expecting the EPA to move forward soon with initiating a rulemaking to grant the Railroad Commission primary permitting and regulatory authority over Class 6 carbon dioxide injection wells. In other words, the responsibility for oversight of Class 6 wells would go to the Railroad Commission. Class 6 injections are a newer and unproven technology with proposals to expand quickly. Class 6 primacy would bring on rapid, widespread commercial development of CCS infrastructure at a time in which industrial communities are already surrounded by rapid industrial expansion. Together with the Texas CCS Community Advocacy Coalition, we are opposing the EPA granting the Railroad Commission Class 6 primacy. Our coalition is asking for accountability instead of aspirational goals. Our lives cannot continue to depend on these aspirations of agencies that say they can protect us when truly they cannot, and have proven so in the past. All it takes is looking at the Railroad Commission's Class 2 track record to know that they are not ready to be overlooking the Class 6 wells. Some of the issues with Class 2 wells and the Railroad Commission's enforcement have included the limited use of enforcement and powers, meaning fewer penalties for violations. Even when operators violate, there has been inadequate response and a lack to follow through with penalties for violations. Other things have included weak permitting and monitoring processes, groundwater contamination concerns, and transparency and accountability issues. The Railroad Commission needs to first make sure that they can do the jobs they have already been entrusted with before asking for more responsibilities. We want accountability instead of aspirations and good feels. That is not going to protect our communities. We need the Railroad Commission to be serious, to understand that their job is to protect us. It is not to protect the industry, and they need to do their jobs before asking for more. Thank you. Oh, and sorry, and now my colleague, Alex Spike, will speak.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alexander Spike. I'm a member of the climate team at Air Alliance Houston. At Air Alliance, we believe that everybody has the right to breathe clean air, no matter where they're from, no matter their background. Today, I'll be reading a statement from our Executive Director, Jennifer Hadaya. And with no further ado, quote, "Removing carbon from the air is beyond critical as we continue to see record warming from the continued burning of fossil fuels. However, sequestering carbon in a well or through a pipeline is not the solution, and we have seen these projects fail in other communities, resulting in dangerous leaks to residents and harms to first responders. These risks would be exacerbated in Texas without effective regulatory oversight. Sadly, the Railroad Commission of Texas has already proven it is not an effective regulator in regards to Class 2 injection wells. Today, we join our partners to call on the EPA to reject primacy for the Railroad Commission of Texas over Class 6 injection wells. We need the EPA, now more than ever, to make good decisions that protect Texans from the dangers of pollution, including carbon." Thank you. And I'll be passing this to Sophie to speak from Clean Water Action.
Hi, my name is Sophia Dreslinski. I'm here with Environment Texas, and I'll be reading on behalf of Becky Smith, who is the Texas Director of Clean Water Action. Quote, "The Safe Drinking Water Act directly addresses underground injections such as these Class 6 carbon dioxide storage wells for one reason: They can pollute drinking water supplies and future sources of drinking water to the point that they may no longer be used for human consumption. Out of the 13 largest carbon capture projects worldwide, 7 have underperformed, 2 have failed, and 1 has been completely mothballed. The price of capturing a non-guaranteed amount of CO2 is too high when we see evidence of technical failure as well as the history of enforcement failure on the part of the Railroad Commission of Texas. We join our colleagues in urging EPA to not grant primacy over Class 6 injection wells to the Railroad Commission of Texas. Thank you. I'll now be passing to Bailey Bass.
Hi, I'm with Environment Texas, and I will be reading from
Permian Futures.
Coastal Watch.
Permian Futures.
Oh, Permian with Texas Permian Future Generations from Eli Hilbert. The Railroad Commissions of Texas has a regulatory history filled with disasters and horror stories of their own making. Why would we give them primacy over Class 6 wells when they have already done such a poor job regulating Class 2 wells? There have been many well blowouts in the Permian in the last several years, and the Railroad Commission has no plan on how to prevent these in the future, or better monitor them when they happen again. Additionally, West Texas has a severe water shortage, again, with no plans for how to fix this very pressing, very important problem. If carbon injection ruins our main source of water, what is the plan? People cannot live here without water. Until the Railroad Commission shows competency at controlling what is under their jurisdiction, it is foolish to give them more responsibility, especially with such new technology that we know so little about, and what massive harms can occur when it's improperly controlled. Now I'll be passing it on to Julie Range.
And I will be reading a statement from Rhiannon Scott, Executive Director of Coastal Watch Association. Granting the Railroad Commission primacy over Class 6 injection wells would be a dangerous mistake. This agency has repeatedly failed to protect Texans from the risks associated with Class 2 wells, allowing groundwater contamination, sinkholes, and earthquakes to go unchecked. Transferring authority for carbon storage wells, which pose short-term risks and even greater long-term risks, would only compound these failures. Our community is under threat of multiple polluting projects that rely on carbon capture technology to be profitable. One project in our backyard at McCampbell Airport would put our community at risk due to faulting and unplugged wells in the area. We also have the threat of a blue ammonia plant next to a primary school with a 66-mile pipeline traveling through our coastal bend communities. Primacy will speed these projects up and overwhelm our community with dangerous and polluting facilities. The EPA must reject this proposal and place public safety and environmental integrity above industry convenience. And now I'll pass it over to Matthew.
My name is Matthew Kennedy, and I work with Texas Campaign for the Environment, which supports communities across Texas in their fight against the fossil fuel and petrochemical facilities polluting their homes. Many of these corporations operating these plants have been incorporating so-called carbon capture and storage into their operations. But we know that this flashy technology is just a dangerous distraction from the need for a just transition from toxic industry in Texas. In Ingleside, Texas, near Corpus Christi, our allies at the Coastal Watch Association have been leading a grassroots campaign against the Enbridge Ingleside blue ammonia plant proposed by the Canadian multinational energy company Enbridge and Norwegian agrochemical giant Yara. If completed, it would produce nearly 3 million metric tons of ammonia per year, almost entirely for export to produce synthetic fertilizers overseas, as well as over 3 million tons per year of greenhouse gases. Though Yara and Enbridge refer to the facility as Project Yaren, we call it the Ingleside Primary School Ammonia Plant, because it would be located just over 1.5 miles from the local elementary school, putting the health and safety of local school children in Ingleside at risk. Ammonia is a colorless gas which is acutely toxic, even in small amounts. It's corrosive to the respiratory tract and fatal when inhaled. The process of producing ammonia, used primarily for synthetic fertilizers, is highly emissions intensive and dangerous for workers and nearby communities. In confined spaces, it presents an enormous fire and explosion hazard. It can also cause severe skin burns and eye damage. In spite of all of these unacceptable health risks, and in spite of the fact that the Ingleside Primary School ammonia plant would use fracked methane as a feedstock, Yara and Enbridge are blue washing this facility with promises of low carbon, clean ammonia production. These promises are premised on a plan to move captured carbon dioxide through a pipeline to a storage facility in South Texas. But carbon dioxide pipelines are highly corrosive and will expose surrounding communities to serious hazards and pollution events. Carbon dioxide is colorless and odorless and could pollute groundwater and soil and is dangerous to breathe in the event of a leak. We see right through Enbridge and Yara's false promises of blue or green petrochemicals. No matter how much carbon they pledge to capture, no matter how they brand and color code their toxic gases, we won't allow these massive corporations to turn our communities into a sacrifice zone. I want to conclude with a brief statement from my organization, TCE. Throughout the state of Texas, we are seeing billions of public tax dollars being given to oil, gas, and petrochemical companies. Today, the carbon capture industry is hoping to dip into the funds of public tax dollars to finance unproven, highly risky, and expensive projects throughout the state that threaten the public interest of all Texans. While the idea is being sold to the public that carbon capture is green technology that will reduce carbon emissions, the reality is that CCUS is an attempt to extend the life of the fossil fuel industries, which will increase emissions, not reduce them. We stand with our coalition partners and Texans across the state to demand that the EPA not grant primacy to the Railroad Commission of Texas. And now I want to pass the mic to Camille at Public Citizen.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Camille. I'm a climate and clean energy associate for the Texas Office of Public Citizen, a nonprofit consumer advocacy organization that champions the public interest in the halls of power. There is a reason why fossil fuel corporations embrace carbon capture. It's a greenwashing scam. That the notoriously industry-friendly Railroad Commission of Texas wants oversight of something the polluting fossil fuel industry wants is no surprise. Because when it comes to the Railroad Commission, what the fossil fuel industry wants, it gets. Given the Commission's history of promoting corporate interests, Texans should worry that if the agency gets regulatory control of these carbon injection wells, it could end poorly, compromising the water supply, exacerbating the earthquakes caused by those wells, and more. The Railroad Commission has repeatedly proven that they are not up to being an industry watchdog on behalf of everyday Texans. Between failing to keep up with monitoring and enforcement, lacking capacity, or being unable to track the thousands of unlisted orphan wells, the Commission is in no position to be trusted with more responsibilities. It already has a long track record of threatening Texas's water. Because of the Railroad Commission's negligence, a P13 oil and gas well has sprung a decades-long leak, creating a foul-smelling 60-acre saltwater lake in Pecos County called Lake Beamer. Leaks and well blowouts have been threatening rural water supplies for decades in Texas, and they are becoming more frequent. Why risk new Lake Beamers popping up across the state for an untested and unreliable technology like CCS? If CCS is unleashed in Texas, who knows how much of our already limited potable groundwater will be put at risk. The agency's mission is to protect the state's natural resources and look out for community health and safety. Yet each agency action or inaction often fails to protect Texans and their natural resources. If the EPA grants Title VI primacy to the Railroad Commission, it places all responsibility on the state of Texas to oversee enforcement authority for all underground injection control. The track record shows that the Commission does not protect the resources but exploits them, putting corporate profits above all else. With all of the CCS hubs planned to be built along the Gulf Coast, these dangerous wells will be closer to people than ever before. The Railroad Commission should not get primacy over these injection wells. It should instead focus on meeting its past due commitments, including plugging the thousands of orphaned and unplugged wells across the state and fixing its poor record of holding industry accountable for violating the law before taking on anything else. Thank you. Now I'll pass it to Virginia Palacios.
Hi, my name is Virginia Palacios. I'm the Executive Director of Commission Shift. I'm a fourth generation landowner in Webb County, and I'm the ninth generation of my family to be born in Webb County. I think it's important that our local, state, and federal agencies seek to make decisions that will benefit our communities for the next 9 generations. Commission Shift is a statewide organization headquartered in Laredo, Texas. Our mission is to build public support to hold the Railroad Commission of Texas accountable to its mission in a shifting energy landscape. Together with the Texas Carbon Capture and Storage Community Advocacy Coalition, we're opposing the EPA granting the Railroad Commission of Texas Class 6 carbon dioxide injection well primacy. The Railroad Commission has operated as a rubber stamp agency for too long, and we can't trust the decisions they will make if granted Class 6 primacy. The commissioners receive campaign contributions and have personal financial interests in the same companies they make decisions about. Some of the highest donors to Railroad Commission campaigns are companies that primarily operate injection wells. We routinely see the commissioners go against their technical staff's recommendations to approve injection wells into the same formations that have caused Lake Beamer to form in Pecos County. The EPA should not hand over more authority to an agency with an inherently biased structure. South Texas is experiencing its second extreme drought in 15 years. Both surface water and groundwater are becoming much more scarce. Carbon dioxide injection puts our groundwater at risk of acidification. A Class 6 well planned in Clayburgh County is in a part of South Texas that has a 22% poverty level and is increasingly facing a loss of surface water supplies. Right now, the Texas legislature is proposing expensive solutions like water desalination and water export to make up for that loss in water supplies. We need decision-making that's focused on keeping our scarce fresh groundwater safe and affordable and preventing contamination as much as possible. Despite plugging 1,300 orphaned wells per year, the Railroad Commission cannot plug orphaned wells fast enough to prevent well blowouts and leaks. The state has never allocated enough funding for the agency to do its job well and effectively prevent groundwater contamination. Class 2 injection wells, mostly saltwater disposal wells, are causing earthquakes, sinkholes, geyser-like well blowouts, and leaks across the state. Peer-reviewed studies have confirmed that Class 2 injection is causing these problems. We have no reason to believe that the Railroad Commission will do what it takes to prevent groundwater contamination from Class 6 carbon dioxide injection wells. Texas isn't ready for rapid, widespread commercial development of CCS infrastructure, which is what primacy would bring. We're expecting pipelines that will run from Houston to West Texas and Corpus Christi to Laredo. Those pipelines, although not a part of the primacy decision, will be coming our way if primacy is approved. And the Railroad Commission is also in charge of safety over those pipelines. There's not a single agency in Texas that has responsibility to oversee siting and locations of pipelines in Texas. We're calling on the EPA not to approve the Railroad Commission's application for Class 6 primacy. Protect our groundwater. Thank you everyone for coming to today's press conference. We really appreciate you being here, and thank you for listening.